Hi guys, welcome to Stylish and Sustainable. My name is Sabrina and this is the podcast. This is our first episode. I'm so excited that we are all sitting down together. First official, if you don't count the teaser. And today I'm just going to be doing a food for thought episode. So the question I'm going to give you today to be your food for thought is, what is a conscious consumer? That's kind of what we're going to be chatting about, or I'm going to be talking to you mostly about today. But I'm so excited to hear what you have to say in response to this episode afterwards. First, before I talk about being a conscious consumer, which I'm really excited to talk about, by the way, because I think the idea of understanding being a conscious consumer is behind so many of the decisions that we make that are thought of as earth-friendly. So like living plastic-free, or buying organic, or buying local, or participating in the slow fashion movement. Like that's all comes from being a conscious consumer first. So that's how we're going to talk about it today. But anyways, before we dive into that, we're going to talk about what it means to be a complicit consumer. So being complicit in something is essentially just being involved in something that's illegal or a wrongdoing. But most of the time, I feel like at least, being complicit in these bad things is not even intentional or direct involvement. I think being complicit can also mean turning your head and ignoring a wrongdoing, even when you know it's happening, because in that sense, you're kind of enabling the wrongdoers to continue with their actions. So you're letting the nastiness continue because you're not standing up. It's just like the classic story we were told in elementary school, like, don't be a bystander to bullies. Well, that's applicable to adults too, guys, and it's super, super applicable to being a consumer. Unfortunately, a lot of companies these days are the bad guys. They are the bullies, if you will, and they do illegal things. They take advantage of vulnerable people and resources, and then on top of all of that, the worst thing is that they get paid for it. They get paid to be bullies. And when we buy products from companies that do these things and take part in these wrongdoings, we are being a bystander. We're literally like funding, in some respect, these bad things. We're enabling them to continue to happen. So I'm just going to give you kind of a fun little example with a woman named Linda. This is totally a theoretical woman. Although if your name is Linda, please don't be offended. I love all the Lindas in my life. And all the Lindas in my life would probably not do these things I'm about to list. But for the sake of storytelling time, we're gonna say that there is a woman named Linda. We'll say that she's 30, she has 2 young kids, she's got red hair, and she's beautiful, just for the sake of us having a aesthetically pleasing heroine here. Anyway, so Linda goes to the store one day, and she is gonna buy something to put on top of pumpkin pie, because let's say it's Thanksgiving. She buys herself some Ready Whip, and she goes home, and the kids love it, the guy loves it, her friends that come over all love it, and then on her birthday, couple months later, she has a key lime pie. She's like, man, everyone loves that Ready Whip. I'm gonna go buy me myself some Ready Whip. And so every time she's buying this Ready Whip, it's costing her about $4. And pretty soon, because the whole family, all her friends, they all like this Ready Whip, she keeps buying it. It becomes like a family staple, and she's buying it 4 to 6 times a year. So if it's $4 a piece, that's about $16 to $24 a year. In the next 50 years, that's going to add up. It's going to be $1,200. And unknowingly, besides putting a bunch of crap in her body, she has given $1,200 to Conagra Foods. Honestly, probably a ton more, because Conagra Foods is a conglomerate that makes the most packaged foods of any other company on the planet. And consistently makes it to the top of Business Insider and other economic journals' list of the least socially and environmentally friendly companies in the world. So she's funded that. She's been complicit there. But that's just her Ready Whip, right? That's just her $4 occasionally for Ready Whip. $1,200, girls. That's a lot of money. Now let's say Linda, in this same trip, goes to Walmart and she buys a t-shirt. And it's cheap and it's kind of cute. She can upstyle it a bit. So Linda starts shopping there, and then every dollar she spends on the clothes there is just funding, I really probably don't even have to tell you about Walmart, but unfair, inhumane treatment of sweatshop workers, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into the doom and gloom, but it kind of blows. And Linda, if she's buying cotton t-shirts that are almost never 100% organic at Walmart, I'm just actually going to come out and say they're probably not ever. Linda is also funding and entrenching the world's most pesticide-dependent industry. That is right. Almost all of the different cottons that you buy, unless they're certified organic, are just going to be laden with pesticides. But if Linda buys polyester products at Walmart, those cute little dresses, she is funding oil and coal extractions in Alaska and the Middle East that are displacing communities and they're destroying habitats. Yeah, just nastiness. So you get the point. That was a super depressing story. But there's hope for Linda, because where Linda puts her money, Linda puts her support, and that's the idea of being a complicit consumer versus a conscious consumer. And there's hope for you in that as well. Where you put your money, where you spend your money on things, you are either supporting the people behind those items, those products, or you are entrenching the bad things that's happening to those people and the resources behind them. And that all comes down to you. That is totally your decision. And the line between being a conscious consumer and a complicit consumer, both for Linda and myself and yourself, is the difference between just taking a moment to think. And more importantly, one person, the conscious consumer, is thinking deeply about what's going on, while the complicit consumer is just okay to fund like environmental degradation or species extinction, human slavery, unfair working conditions. I could go on and on. They're okay because it just makes shopping cheaper and more convenient. It's such a simple decision, but it does take a little bit of thinking and it takes some asking questions. But in a weird way, the side effect of asking the questions, and I'm going to get into some of the questions that we can ask to be more informed consumers in a second, is that it's really fun. You're going to end up very quickly finding companies that you just totally jive with. Usually these are smaller companies that are just starting, and thankfully in the last 5 years we've seen this massive growth in companies that are being more thoughtful about how they source and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you're going to feel really good buying from these companies if you start asking questions and if you start expecting more from the people that you're buying things from. And you're going to feel so good about it and so confident about it that it's going to just turn into self-care. It's going to turn into a situation where your form of treating yourself isn't binging a chocolate bar. It's going out and buying something that you feel just so proud to have because there's no guilt in it. Like, it's not unhealthy for you or the environment or for people around you. You feel good wearing it. It's healthy for you to be wearing it. This is if we're using clothes as an example. But this rule goes for anything. So it's important to understand that being a conscious consumer isn't just good for the earth. It isn't just good for people in China in sweatshops. It's good for you, and it just feels so good. And I speak from experience because there's definitely a time in my life where I wasn't a conscious consumer, and being one has just changed the way that I look at how I set standards for other people and for myself. It's just a wonderful thing. So the next question that you're going to follow up with, I know you're thinking, well, how do I do this? Like, where do I start? And it's pretty simple. You're going to start asking yourself 4 questions. I'm going to say these are the 4 conscious consumer questions. And the first one is, where was this made? So if you have a product in your hand or you're looking at it online, first question you can ask yourself is, where is this thing made? Buying things local is often going to ensure that like labor rules and the people that made that product are paid fairly, and it also has the wonderful added benefit of reducing the carbon footprint of whatever product you're buying, because it's not going to have to travel as long to get to you. So a great place to buy local products are farmers market, local co-ops, Etsy if you filter your local zip code. Those are all great places to keep it local. But you can also just find products online and do a little bit of research on the About tab and find out where they're at. Buying local is a really wonderful thing. The second question you're going to ask is, how was this made? And when I ask that question, and when you ask yourself that question, I don't want you to go watch a video about how this said product you're buying is actually made. You don't need to see how it's made in a factory or how people do it by hand. I just want you to think of this question more as, with what ethics in mind was this product made? So, for instance, story time part 2. If you're buying a moisturizer and I were to be like, hey, how was that moisturizer made? I'm asking, was that moisturizer tested on animals? Does it include palm oil? Which, if you don't know, palm oil is one of the leading reasons for the deforestation of rainforests right now. So it's just, palm oil is kind of nasty ickiness. But if I was asking questions like that, I'm asking you more, how did the people who made this go about making it, rather than how did they actually sit down and make it? And were they careful to respect others and the environment, or did they just do it in the cheapest and easiest way possible? So that's the second question. How was this made? First question, where was this made? Second question, how was this made? Or with what ethics in mind was it made? And then the third question, who made this? So trying to figure that out is going to be really tricky. And it can either be really, really tricky, or it can be super easy. And the ability for you to find that out is often going to hinge on the fact that the company is either going to be really big or somewhat small. So, storytime part 3, if you were to buy from a company like, say, Christy Dawn, or just about anyone on Etsy, or your local farmers market, they're going to be crazy transparent about who is actually making the stuff you're buying. In some cases, like at the farmer's market, you can shake the hand with the person who made, in air quotes, those carrots. Whereas if you walk into Walmart or Target, or even just pull up Amazon in your browser, you're going to really struggle to find who actually had their hands on that product, who actually took part in creating whatever you're buying. And what that means is that the likelihood of you being able to stand up for the person, or for you being able to see what's actually going on behind the scenes for the person that made that product, gets a little bit less likely the bigger the company gets. So just keep that in mind. Food for thought. All right. The final question is an interesting one, and one that I think is really challenging. It takes it to a whole nother level. The question is, if you won the lottery today, would you feel good inside investing in the company you bought said product from? Does that company share your ideals to the extent that you would feel good giving them just a ton of money with nothing in return? And does that company even have ideals? That's an important question to ask too. But I think the important thing to think about in this question is, for me, surprisingly, when I started to think about this question, there are a lot of companies I found recently that I would feel totally fine. If I won the lottery and I had a ton of money and the people at the lottery came to me and they said, hey, the only way you can get this is if you give 10% of what you just are being given to the last place you bought something from, I would be totally chill with that, because the companies that I'm buying from, I love them. I just love what they're doing. I love that they're standing up for good things and they're paying their people well and they're being honest and transparent. Would you feel good inside giving the companies you're buying from a lot of money? Because at the end of the day, if we think about Linda and her Ready Whip every year, if she's buying that stuff consistently, that's a huge lifetime investment. She is essentially becoming an investor in that company. She's giving them a lot of money, which enables them to continue working and existing. And you have to ask yourself, Do I want to continue funding and supporting companies that are doing good things or companies that are doing bad things? So to wrap it up, I just want to sum up some key ideas. First of all, being complicit in bad stuff sucks. We all know that. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't have good effects on other people and the environment, and it doesn't have good effects on us. It makes us feel guilty, and sometimes it can legitimately have like really bad health effects on us. So if you don't want to be complicit, if you don't want to be a contributor to the bad guys, then just stop. It just takes a little bit more thought and a little bit more research, but I can guarantee you there is someone else out there doing it in a more thoughtful way. And like I said, in the last 5 years, there's just been this massive growth of companies in all areas of our lives addressing all of our needs that are still small, but are giving us a greater choice in how we vote with our dollar every time we buy something. Shopping smart and being a conscious consumer just feels good. It's just something that we can be proud of, like going to the gym or eating healthy or like having a really cool designer product. It's just something that we can tell people about. It is really legitimately something to be proud of, and you will begin to recognize how good it makes you feel. It's like, in a weird way, a little bit less than doing charity work, but along the same lines. I'm so glad that you guys tuned in. I hope that I gave you some food for thought. I hope you know that you are so capable and that you can rock this conscious consumer thing. I know that it takes a little while to get and that this is a lot to take in. And it can be kind of depressing when we start thinking about these things. But I just want you to keep a hopeful mindset. Because although there is a learning curve and it's sometimes hard to fit into our budget, which is a reality, and one that we're going to talk about as we go on together, it can totally be done. And you can do it. I believe that. I have got your back. I am here to support you. So the next time, speaking of support for you, that you buy a product for which you can answer all of the 4 questions that we just talked about, and you feel good about those answers, shoot me a direct message on Instagram, and I will put you in the hat for our bi-weekly product giveaways. Free entry right there. All you have to do is be able to answer those 4 questions about a product you're buying. Shoot me your answers. Tell me listen to the episode, and I will put your name in the hat. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Stylish and Sustainable for daily fun stuff, lots of tips and tricks and challenges, and subscribe to the blog on our website, www.livestylishandsustainable.com. If you're listening on Spotify, hit that follow button, and you iTunes folks, be sure to subscribe. Sending good vibes, guys. See you next time.